Precisely. And once you learn how to do that, then you can bring in all the stakeholders and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive. And so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of like that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America, we do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally. And we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about and language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. I have this salon and then I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow. Send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Startup on the Blocks, Lloyd Richard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Startup on the Blocks.
Hey, we're here. Welcome to Startup on the Block, Startup Best Practices. How are you doing, Caroline?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here, and you're going to be a big, great resource for our founders all over, and so we're definitely glad to have you here. First, I'm going to want to talk about our sponsors a little bit, give a few shout outs to them because they're the one that make it possible for us to find all these great resources for founders and that they can use to grow their startup. Two of our big partners are like Blacks in Technology Foundation. Want to give a big shout out for them. Florida Power and Light, they've been with us from day one, and so we really appreciate what they're doing. And Industry Hotels, they are pretty neat too. They sponsor, I think about 4 or 5 of our pitch competitions that we had early on. So they're a big partner. The First Bank, they came on early, and their employees been helping us with our judging of our cohorts. We did last year. We did 7 demo days. Can you believe that, Caroline?
Wow, 7? Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And Renaissance Bank came on last year as well. And local chamber, the Minority Chamber, and the Greater Pensacola Chamber, the Small Business Development Center, and CoLab. Those are some of the local organizations. And Startup Science, we have a great resource there. We've partnered with them, and our founders get to take their training as well. And so anything a startup founder needs to learn about applying for startup programs or talking to investors, we put out that training for the founders to make it available for them. So folks in the audience, if you want to learn how to talk to investors and want to learn how to get in some of these programs, that Startup Science thing is a great resource. So nice bit of supporters, and I guess Caroline, so sooner or later, I guess we want to be able to put your logo up there as well.
Sooner rather than later, I'm sure.
Okay, gotcha.
I have to say, Lloyd, I mean, this is amazing. To everyone watching, really do not underestimate the power of partnerships, connecting with people who care, who want to support you, who have the resources. I mean, I love this slide.
Yes. And so, we definitely want to keep growing those partnerships. And I think the partnership with you all is going to be really great because it's going to, and like the topic tonight, it's going to unlock some of those resources out there in the ecosystem, especially the ones that help fund the innovations that the startups are doing. So we're real excited about that.
Yeah, and same here, Lloyd. I'm really excited to be working with you guys and partnering with you guys as well.
Fantastic. And this is just kind of a little summary of what we did last year, but it's probably not all of it. I'm hoping we'll be busy this year, but I don't know if I can handle being as busy as we were last year. Yes, but we got a great team of coaches And shout out to them, because we couldn't have did it without them working with the founders and putting all that time in, coaching the founders to kind of get them through their startup journey. And so this year we're going to continue on, and I guess the new thing this year, we're going to do a innovation summit in April. So some of our supporters have been after us to kind of do an event, and so we're looking forward to doing that in April. So put those dates on your calendar so we can make sure folks are ready for that. And so, won't you take a minute or two to kind of introduce yourself and your company?
Absolutely. So hi guys, my name is Caroline. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Omnisync. So we are actually a startup ourselves. We are based in San Diego, California, and we were built with one mission, and it was really just to unlock critical resources and empower innovation. We're pretty much just no bullshit people. And for us, we realized that there was a lot of lack of access, frankly, and across the entire ecosystem. And we just wanted to level the playing field, democratize resources and innovators. So we create cutting edge artificial intelligence tools to help innovation. And that can be from any side of the innovation ecosystem, but we primarily help founders. So founders work with us to help find and apply for grant funding, help do market research, find competitors, partners, investors, and so on and so forth. And so we've really been, I think, integral into helping people realize that there's all these different sources of funding out there. There's non-dilutive capital, and actually helping people who didn't have the resources and didn't have, frankly, like an equitable stance, actually tackle these resources and access them. So I am very much the same. I'm just a person who loves founders. And so when I met my team here, it was just serendipity, right? So I was employee 4, we're now 5 times that amount. And we're working across the innovation ecosystem with startups, with entrepreneurial support organizations, accelerators, incubators, universities, investors. And we also have partnerships with the Air Force, Department of Energy, and DoD.
Fantastic. That's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But I do like the term you used, democratizing resources. Yeah, and that is pretty fantastic. Definitely want to dive deep into that. So first, before we get into more details on that, I'll do a quick review of what our program is all about, and then we'll get into a conversation with you, Caroline. And feel free to comment on some of these slides too. Yeah, so like look in the video, we were talking about working with founders, at the early, like when they're just ideating. And so this starts from Startup Commons, and one of the points I was making on the slides, on the video, was that a lot of the programs, they work with founders that out at number 2 and number 3 or number 1, and so, but a lot of times, there are plenty of people out there who don't have the knowledge to kind of get to number 1. So our job is to kind of get them there. And this is from Startup Commons. And so then this is another look at the same thing, but this is the Lean Stack roadmap. And so it focuses on the business modeling first, and then moving on to problem solution fit, and talking to potential customers before you actually go out there and build something. So, but yes, I was curious, and we'll talk more about the founders of your company and kind of see which process they use. But I think that's a fundamental part of getting started, is designing and stress testing your business model before you go out spending a lot of money on it.
No, I mean, frankly, I found my start in the innovation ecosystem at a startup studio. So I fell in love with innovation. Actually, at university, I was in an entrepreneurship frat. So I'm a frat girl. apparently.
Okay,
But
that's
I,
fantastic.
I fell in love with it because it was good people who had a vision for change and weren't willing to were willing to go and fail and fall on their faces, and
Mhm.
coming from kind of a immigrant family and trauma ridden sort of family, they were so focused on acclimating and not rocking the boat and just surviving and surviving.
Yes,
So I absorbed this sort of survival mentality. Um,
yes.
and really, when I met these people who had a vision, right, and they were okay with failing, it was pretty revolutionary for me and in my personal life. And
Fantastic.
yeah, I wanted to pursue that. So I joined a studio first, a startup studio, and for me, it was all about the lean startup methodology. I mean, I love the concept of business model creation. Go talk to users, iterate, 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 iterate. And whenever I mentor, that's normally how I direct my startups to
Okay.
go down the process. Now, because we work with, I think we have 12,000 users on our platform, and
Hmm.
frankly, you're totally right. There is something really missing in the ecosystem at that early stage of, really ideation and concept. Most people and most ESOs are there helping the later stage companies who at least are a little bit more down the path. I don't think startups really know what to do at that ideation and that concept phase. So even though I would say I want everyone to do lean startup, I think some of them are just doing things instinctually, right? And that's why they're looking
Hmm.
for resources and partners, and that's why they might not have thought to go down this point of create your business model and validate it before you're spending all this time.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's the kind of the whole point. So you mentioned the startup studios. So why don't you take a second to explain to the folks in the audience what a startup studio is?
Yeah, so I love a startup studio. So you guys have heard of incubators and accelerators, and those are programs really intended to help guide your company along and help you accelerate your growth. Now, a startup studio is different in the sense that it's pretty much like a co-founder with you. So they're taking a lot more ownership, but they're really helping you build the idea. And oftentimes those studio models actually just spin out internal ideas. So they will partner with corporates at times. Our company was actually founded out of a startup studio and our launch factory here in San Diego, and they partner with a lot of corporates. But most of the time they have internal ideas that they're trying to spin out. And so I joined a company where we were pretty much testing out a bunch of ideas at once and figuring out where the market might lie, what the business model should look like, what the customers were going to look like. And it was fun, especially for my neurodivergence. We had so many ideas, but a lot of practice, right? Going through this early stage in terms of ideation and spinning things out.
Yeah. So, and the folks founders out there, feel free to ask questions anytime. I think the startup studio is a great thing. And for the folks that are out there in our programs, I do have a connection to kind of a startup studio that they're looking for folks at a certain stage. So, I want to impress that you definitely follow this lean startup methodology. And I think the lean stack .com, what's neat about it, it gives you some tools to kind of stress test your business model. So you can like stress test it for desirability, viability, and feasibility. And it doesn't take that long to stress test. Any idea you have, you can stress test it in a matter of minutes. So that's what's neat about that.
And not only does it not take a lot of time, it should be continual. This should be constant for
Yes,
you. Absolutely.
yes. Gotcha. And I did want to throw this startup science chart in there. It takes a slightly different approach, but it's still, you can still map these phases that a startup goes to. But the neat thing about the startup science one is that it's designed by the founder that's been through 12 exits. And so he's literally telling you all the things you need to know from the beginning to the exit, and the training material, we offer that to our founders also at no charge. And so it's definitely, yeah. So yeah, that's a great, appreciate you putting that in the in the chat there about that particular. Yeah, right.
By the way, I'm loving these different models that you're showing. This is so fun for me.
Yeah, it's just different. Folks look at things from different perspectives, and so it's always good to kind of see the different ways people look at things, because there's so many programs out there, and typically it's based on the folks who start them. They have a different approach to it. So like, we're a member of the Black Innovation Alliance, and there's like over 200 organizations in that, and they all work with founders, and they all have a different approach.
Absolutely. And all founders, frankly, I mean, to be honest, our startup is pretty complex because we work with a ton of startups. We work with accelerators and incubators. We work with the government. We have different products. And so there's all these levels to it. And I think if we had tried to shove ourselves in one of these boxes and thought we were doing something wrong because we hadn't really fit a methodology, as opposed to trying to find the methodology that really worked for us and taking this guidance as a way to learn and educate ourselves, and of course, make sure that we were preempting bad practices, I think we could have driven ourselves crazy. So I know that different ESOs have different methodologies, and I know there are multiple out there. We just saw a couple, and I always recommend to founders to be taking all this guidance and applying it to their unique case, because every founder, it's such a unique journey.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so you can't take information from any one founder or any one person and think that's the secret sauce, because there's so many perspectives, and you have to research the perspective that's come up with for your startup.
Yeah, not to say to ignore this knowledge. I mean, there's been a lot of work but just to know that I think sometimes I see founders, since it's such an emotional, personal journey, really feel the weight of it, and feel like they're going wrong, when at times, I mean, there's just, it's just part of the journey.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so what first I wanted to kind of go down this path with you. You talked a little bit about your journey while you were in the startup studio, but I wanted to kind of get back to like early on, like high school or whatever. What kind of led you to whatever career you were thinking about when you were younger?
Yeah, this is a great question. And in fact, it was a really difficult question for me. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was unprepared through college. Again, an Armenian family, so the Middle Eastern family was breathing down my neck, asking me if I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer. But there was nothing I really connected to. Now thinking back to it, I loved, when I was a Girl Scout and I was selling cookies, when I was doing bake sales, when I was fundraising for different philanthropies I was working with, I loved connecting with people and making impact, and honestly seeing the numbers, right? And experimenting, right? Did this pastry sell better, or was this the right way to go? I love the experimentation and obviously creating a first startup entity, for profit entity. And so those were just little examples from my youth that, looking back retroactively, connect with some of the work that I'm doing now.
Fantastic.
But most of all, I really didn't know. I went in pretty undeclared, and I just tried to go with something that I connected to. It was just a very spiritual connection. I mean, I used to think that I would never find anything that I loved, but I love founders. I love startups. And it was just because they helped me grow. I now can face failure every day. I feel like it's a very spiritual journey. Every day I have to wake up and grow this company and experiment and face failure and try to make impact. And I have always been a person who injustice doesn't really sit right with me. So it's just, I can't even stomach it really, and so looking at issues and just trying to figure out the equitable, like easy way to do so is very fun for me. it's very fun to try to experiment in that regard. So it was a couple different tenets, right? It was making impact. It
Okay.
was working with good people who just needed a leg up and wanted to change the world. And it was the challenge, right? It was having to constantly face myself and face the problem every single day, and hopefully build something. And it's addicting. When you see things working, it's addicting to see that scale, and see yourself actually helping people.
Right. That's good. So you mentioned that you got into a startup studio when you were in college.
So I joined my fraternity, which is called Sigma
Okay.
Alpha Pi.
Okay.
And it's an entrepreneurship fraternity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so it was really fun. And in order to pledge and become part of the fraternity, you had to actually found your own company, or at least go through the exercise.
I didn't even know there was such a fraternity. How many people in the audience knew that it was such a fraternity that you had to found your company to be a member of the fraternity? Yeah, so that.
I didn't even know there were fraternities like that out there. And so it was small scale, right? Experimentation, but I started a cookie business in my community that became very popular. And I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of give out free product in order to get feedback, in order to get social media fodder, in order to, there was a lot of experimentation in terms of not just the product, right? But actually having it set like catch on like wildfire and get popular in my local community. And so I joined the community, the founders, and I really loved. We would always meet regularly to talk through some of the ideas of what we were founding, talk through some of the struggles of what we were trying to do, learning lean startup methodology and things like that. But it wasn't really until I left college and I joined the startup studio where I was able to get as hands-on as I wanted with real ecosystem members, past the college stage.
So tell us about the startup community there in San Diego, a little bit about that.
Okay, so I really like the San Diego community. They're good people, but it is very biotech focused.
Okay.
And I know that they're putting a lot of effort into trying to bring in more of a dual use, trying to bring more diversity. Biotech is still growing like crazy. They just built, frankly, I'm sure it's hundreds of millions of dollars, this incubator space and building for wet labs here in San Diego. But it's a good community. They do like monthly events. Sometimes they cross over to Mexico and they go drinking and they connect. And I partner with the SBDC here. We work with local accelerators and incubators. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah. So generally, is there always something going on for startup founders in the San Diego community there?
I think there are things, but I wouldn't say there always is. One of the things, so as I work in this role, right, I partner with a ton of universities, accelerators, incubators, and we help startups across the US. So I've had the privilege of traveling and going to different cities.
Yes.
And like, for instance, Austin, Texas is the community is so vibrant. There's constantly things to do. There is this accelerator space, which we're a portfolio company of, where everyone is constantly meeting and interacting and running into each other. And it really is the sort of center of gravity. Now, I don't feel like San Diego has that one thing that really connects the community in terms of location or specific event. There's great community members here, but it's not like a constant thing like I would see in, Austin, maybe San Francisco-ish yet, but we're building it.
Yeah. So and the reason why I asked that question is just to give the founders, because even when you travel, like for me, if I travel, if I'm going to be in some city on a Thursday, because I know that's when a lot of the meetups happen for founders. And so I would always check the schedule, whether I was going to Europe or wherever. That's always the case. And that's why we do this event every Thursday night. So founders all over the world can know there's once a week, this is a place that they can meet and talk to people. So that's kind of what the idea behind this event is.
And honestly, I recommend doing that. Like, I love what Lloyd just said, and I do that. Anytime I travel, I see the accelerators, the incubators, my friends, the startups in the community. I see the meetups, and I always message them. I mean, it's so fun for me. These are the type of people I love being around, the type of people I love working with. It makes every trip great, and I love making new friends. We have a question. So what creative ways have you seen local stakeholders working together to support the ecosystem? So I definitely think being aware of who's in the ecosystem, email introductions, sharing resources, collaborating for content. Tony, great job. I definitely think looking for networking events is a smart way to do things. And then, yes, on Meetup, we have a few of those, and I like looking on Meetup and Eventbrite and things like that. But in terms of like creative ways of doing things, I think it really is just about genuine partnership where you bring each other in order to support each other's communities. So if my partner has an event here, they invite me in for a table, we come and we talk, we do email introductions, we'll do coffee, and vice versa here. One of the things our startup studio here does is they do innovation sprints, and they invite the innovation community to just sit here, grab coffee, sit around a table and just go do work together, right? And then we have fun activities here, right? Like people go on hikes, they go to the water, they go to Mexico. And so it really is just however you would build an actual community yourself in your personal life. It's the same thing, in that sort of depth.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So you mentioned this idea of an innovation sprint. So which organization puts that on, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our startup studio here, Launch Factory. So Omnisync was the first company out of Launch Factory. We're their first company that they spun out. And now they have a bunch of portfolio companies. And so they're on their current cohort. So it's earlier stage companies, and they do innovation sprints for them. And they were like, screw it. Why don't we open it up to the community? And so now we marketed to a bunch of our San Diego friends. There's a couple sources of truth, like newsletters and things like that for the startup community here. And then people come in, we just have coffee, we have snacks, and people are just working on their stuff basically.
That's fantastic. That sounds really good idea, because I actually haven't heard or seen that around here. So I'm glad to hear it does exist.
Yeah, and maybe it's a thing that you guys do. Thursdays it's the meetup, and maybe Fridays can be like co-working time. I know for me, I love there's a term called body doubling, where you work better when you're near people, and I just like that way because I still have work to do, but I like to do work with people who I like to meet.
Okay, so let's kind of get back to your journey a little bit here. So you went to college, joined a fraternity, that you had to found a startup, you graduated college, you went to startup studio. So can audience, how do you feel about this? As soon as you graduate college, you get into a startup program. And so what happened after the startup studio thing there?
So the venture studio, to be quite honest, I graduated university in the pandemic. So I had joined my my fraternity, and then literally the next couple months later, the pandemic hit, and I moved to LA. I became a caretaker for my grandmother. I was very careful about not interacting with people because I was a caretaker.
Yes.
And the startup studio was an internship in order to really have that hands-on experience in the same way that I wanted to figure out if startups really were the path for me. Turns out they are. And I love them. But not only did I want like a full-time role after transitioning from being a caretaker, but I also kind of wanted to do things on a larger scale. And I love my studio, or the studio I was a part of. Frankly, there was a little bit of sexism, which I was very happy to move away from. But I felt like smaller scale.
Yes.
And it was a future of work focused, which is interesting. But I'm very passionate about energy and equity and things like that. And I wanted to move more towards that path. So with Omnisync, they really said, we are changing the funding landscape here in the US. We're doing it for everyone. You are going to be able to help founders, you're going to help entrepreneurial support organizations, we're going to impact policy, and we have total faith. It doesn't matter that you're 21 and fresh out of college. You care about startups, we care about startups, let's build together. And I think that was just super enticing, especially because we just talked about music. It was just good people, you know?
Gotcha. So like, how did you connect with them? How did you meet them?
Yeah, this is interesting. Now, I really do feel like most jobs and most resources come from networking and come from connections. Luckily enough, this one happened to be LinkedIn. I actually had a competing job offer in Seattle, and I was going to move. And my boss at the time, I don't know, he found me, he reached out. I actually think it was just like an easy apply on LinkedIn. You know, when they ask you to do a whole cover letter, it becomes so. And within a couple days, we were on calls with him, the CTO. And next week, I had my car packed. I had no place to live, and I drove down to San Diego.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So tell us more about Omnisync and the founders and kind of how they evolved into this thing we now know as Omnisync, and we'll get into more about Omnisync in a minute here.
I really love the founders. And that again is because I come from an immigrant background with this sort of survival mentality, some sexism in the past, and frankly, not feeling like I had the value or the resources to really exist or make an impact or be worthy of that. And I feel like I see a lot of founders, especially some of my Black founder friends. And so when I met the team here, I've mentioned the term no bullshit. They really were, they didn't see age, they didn't see gender, they just had faith. And that level of commitment, not only to the community, but also to take this chance on me and help me grow and help me be able to give back to the community. They took my heart ever since. You know, they're just good people. And the founder, he's a girl dad, and he has a couple little girls, and he's just, it's just really inspirational for me to see such a beautiful role model, like such a quality person in every aspect of life, and especially in terms of this like grandiose way of, hey, we can really change like how startups, you know, form here and how the resources they get. So I've loved it since day one. I've loved it since day one.
Great. So did they tell you their kind of journey? Like, did they go through some accelerator or some program or something, or did they just decide they want to, you know, from some research they had done, they just wanted to start, or what was the deal?
They are geniuses. They are so smart, and it is not easy to start anything alone. I don't think they would have. I don't know if they could have. I'm sure they could have, right? There's a ton of amazing founders out there who are brave enough to do it by themselves. But this goes back to my first point about partnerships and accelerators and resources. Those are important. Community is important. Resources are important. They had met in university. They were doing their postdoc in like biotech and biopharmacology. I know Rupak is an immigrant, and he had a company back in India. And until they had this opportunity with the startup studio Launch Factory, which basically it ran a competition, right? Like a blind competition with some business ideas, and they opened it up to the community to have pairs of founders come in and like potentially suggest an idea. And they did it like blind judgment. So nothing in terms of like background, or because they had really successful founders applying, right? Like people who had exited. And Rupak and Norman, our founders, took that opportunity and impressed the hell out of the judges and beat out all these people who really didn't have experience, or all these people who had so much experience. And they got faith from the studio. So the studio itself was really integral into offering this opportunity for them to actually become founders and grow with it and find the resources. And now they're amazing. But again, an accelerator, an incubator, a studio, the type of connections, the type of funding, all of this stuff, it was very important, especially for the early stage time.
Gotcha. Okay. All righty. So that was their kind of first step on launching the startup. So what was their idea that they sort of matured?
Yeah, originally it was more about connecting small businesses with resources.
Okay.
And it was any sort of resource, right? Now, after doing iteration, they really recognized this sort of gap in the market.
Okay.
And they had already experienced that gap in the market because in their time at UCSD, when they met, they had tried to apply for an SBIR and realized how painful the process was.
Okay. Okay.
And so they thought, hey, why don't we go and try to see how to make that easier, how to really make that process more efficient? And in the course of basically interviewing, as many people as you're going to interview with customer discovery, right? And as many people in the ecosystem, you really recognize that the SBIR funding ecosystem needed change. It needed revolution. It needed technology. For context to everyone here, so my company's first product is called Turbo SBIR, and it's pretty much like TurboTax for finding and applying for SBIR grants. And those grants are non-dilutive capital, so grants and contracts from the federal government. It's about $4 billion every year as a program, and it's intended to fund early stage startups who are doing concept, feasibility, prototype development, and are doing this research and development for it. So they want to give you money to fund your R&D across any area of science or technology because they don't want you to die off, and they want to remain economically competitive. They want innovation to remain. And frankly, they have a ton of issues as an organization because they're a big organization. They have problems they want solved. So they want to work with these small businesses to solve those problems. So it's an amazing, amazing program. But the obstacle is, first, most people don't know about it. Second, there's a lot of bureaucracy at every step of the journey. Even just finding an opportunity is very difficult. And then applying for one, over 80% of people get rejected for non-compliance. So imagine putting in all of this effort to like pulling out your hair, spending months and months on a grant application only to get the feedback, hey, your font size was half a point off. Or, hey, you uploaded a Word document instead of a PDF. Better luck next year. The deadline is only once a year. And so that is a big reason that a lot of founders are scared to go after this type of funding because it's confusing, it's overwhelming, it can feel like it's not really an efficient path, but it could be fantastic if they had the resources to go after it. Now, really, instead of doing it themselves and having that 80% rejection rate, it was the only options in the market before we came along were going to consultants who charge you an arm and a leg. It's human capital. Obviously, they have a lot of time that they have to dedicate towards strategy and grant writing and finding the opportunities, but that's not scalable. And it's also not efficient for a founder who really doesn't have much money. So they really recognized that there was this big white space in the market that was just like thirsting for innovation. And before the AI craze even happened, they built cutting edge AI to help people find and apply. So by introducing this sort of technology into the market in combination with like mission driven, low cost expert support, they were able to really like crack the nut and democratize this resource and have a lot of these startups who didn't know about this or who were scared about this actually start accessing the resource. And frankly, I mean, this funding, the success rate is 7 times the amount of going after VCs or angels. It's non-dilutive capital. So you're basically getting free money to build your company your way. You're opening the path to having the government be a customer of yours. So it really is this incredible resource that people just needed help figuring out. And they just really saw the need. And that's why they chose to actually pull the trigger. Besides the fact that it was like a personal thing, right? Like, again, we're no bullshit people. They had experienced it like firsthand, but it really was a kind of a no-brainer in terms of where this white space was in the ecosystem.
So they they had a background in AI or something, and so they thought they could use the technology to support this?
Well, to be honest, they're actually very scrappy. I don't know if they had a background in AI, which is remarkable considering we now have multiple like giant contracts with the government for our AI. So I don't think they had a background in AI, but they're very good at learning and they're very intelligent. And so they just took their logic and some of the stuff that they had known and some of the computer stuff they were doing and the biotech stuff they were doing and try to apply the same logic, if that makes sense.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's just so the neat thing is it's just following that lean startup process, to kind of discover what the problems are and go out there and build something that customers want.
And we've iterated like crazy. I mean, we have iterated like crazy. It really was, okay, customer discovery, first proposition, okay, customer discovery, change proposition, change business model. Okay, actual customers onboarding, fantastic. Okay, what do they actually need? They're not fully satisfied. What do we need to tweak? Okay, change business model. I mean, we have iterated as we've gone on, and you always have to throughout the journey.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you mentioned that process. And what I've noticed and what's been happening is like, so it takes a while to kind of get that product market kind of fit. And then so what happens is but by interacting with customers, you kind of figure out a business model that actually can work. And so the problem that the founders have, a lot of the founders, 80% of them run out of money before they get to figure that out. And so the lean startup methodology sort of gives you an approach that reduces your chances of running out of money before you figure that out. And before you spend so much time, working on your startup that may not even be a scalable business model, but you've spent in there a year, 2 years, and you found out 3 years from now that your business model never was going to scale.
And to be honest, I mean, those are the points where I feel like true tragedy. Like I've cried over those people because they're genuine people who care about their innovation, who spend years. I just talked to someone who spent 10 years building his company and is now like finally thinking of like alternative sources of funding and like revenue and things like that. It's just, I understand the urge to build something you love, but it's the reason I love the lean startup methodology, that iteration, because it's more than money. It's time, it's energy, it's your family, it's your life, it's everything. It's actually why we built our second product, which is the market research tool, because frankly, I know many founders who will spend all this time building their company and then never realize that there was a competitor in the market. Like they didn't really do the research. They didn't really, innovate to make sure that they were the cutting edge actual solution, in the market. And so our market research tool is helping them understand their competitors. And additionally, I know many founders who will build, but not build anything someone needs, which is why it's about listening to your customers. But more than listening, sometimes you have to understand what they're not saying, like what their actions are saying. Because we've had many founders who say they want one thing and then aren't happy when we give them that. And you really do, everything's experimentation basically, but that's the name of the game. You have to experiment at the beginning of it all, and constant.
Yes, so it looks like you perked some of Sandra's attention there. She wants to some more information about the market research tool, and of course we're going to definitely get to that, and I think so we probably should shift to kind of more details about some of the tools you have there, and I think that would be good, but I think it was also worth spending the time to kind of understand, from what I gather from what you've been saying, the founders, they actually we're just following the process and found a problem that was big and worth solving. Yeah. And so, I think before we answer Sandra's question, and by the way, Sandra, that's tool that we have, the Cuckoo Institute has, and we're going to provide that service to the founders, who are out there trying to make a difference. But you mentioned you all got to start with the SBR thing, so tell us a little bit more about that and how you all leverage that program to grow your company.
Yeah.
And by the way, how old is your company?
We're 4 years old.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So we launched our first product, Turbo SBIR, January 2020. Yeah.
Okay. And so how did you all leverage the government to actually get that built?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mentioned that this funding is there intended to fund your R&D in order for you to hopefully survive the valley of death, right? Where that's the point where VCs don't want to touch you because they want proof that you're going to actually bring them money and be a worthwhile investment, but you need money in order to build and show that proof, right? So you're in this catch-22. And so the government recognizes that a lot of companies die off at that point, which is why they want to offer funding to help you test out your concept, test out your feasibility, test out your innovation, and hopefully actually survive and scale and make impact and employ people. Now, we were telling people about how great a resource this was. It made sense that in all of our R&D ourselves, where we were innovating to create this really powerful artificial intelligence, that we would also want to go after these R&D grants that would be aligned with the R&D we were doing in order to fund our company. And so what we did is we actually applied for a few. We got a few from the Air Force to start. So phase one, as I mentioned, the SBIR program is built into 3 phases. Phase 1 is concept and feasibility. Phase 2 is prototype. And then phase 3 is really that big commercialization where the government becomes a customer or you're really bringing in other investment. And so we tested out the concept and the feasibility of some of our AI with our Air Force awards in a phase 1. And what that means is we basically got grants to build our company and do R&D, and we were able to be a true dual use company, which means we're helping the government. Our AI helps solve some of their needs, but we also could take that same research and apply it to our commercial products, which means we didn't really have to eat the costs of all of that R&D work, and we still were able to put them in our commercial product and sell to our consumers. And so we were able to be profitable much faster because we weren't on the hook with all that debt from R&D initiatives. And then what happened is after the Air Force funding, we went to prototype development. So these products, I'm happy our products will help you find investors and partners in the US, but the SBIR grants that I'm mentioning specifically are only for US based founders. The goal, right, is it's taxpayer money. They want to invest it in the US. But there are some contracts.
Yeah, they do have similar programs in other countries as well. So you just have to look out for them.
And I have a couple friends in Canada who help people if you're in Canada. But overall, then we went to phase 2. And then what happened is that the Department of Energy saw the work we were doing, realized it would be applicable, and gave us a giant, 7-figure contract in order to basically have them as a customer and build tools for them. And then the Air Force did that, and so on and so forth. So without this program, not only would we not have been able to build so many resources and tools and do it in a profitable manner, but we also wouldn't have, some of our biggest clients, which is the federal government, and that legitimacy for future investment. So we are fully VC backed. Our seed round was 100% oversubscribed, and we have a ton of investors who want to work with us because we've been legitimized by a lot of the trust, because with taxpayer money, they can't be emotional about it. They have to be very, very intelligent with the funding they give you. So they only give it to the people who they could really trust, and that really legitimizes you. Did that answer your question, Lloyd?
Yeah, I think I believe so. But what does this product, Turbo SBR thing, what does it do, and what do you offer to founders?
Yeah. So basically, instead of you doing it yourself and over 80% getting rejected for non-compliance or paying 10, 20, 30, 40K to a consultant to do it for you, which frankly is never going to happen legally or practically, we created a combination of AI and low-cost human support to make it affordable for founders to enter into the space and win these grants. So our tool will check your eligibility. I believe there's a link I shared where you'll make a free account and check if you're even eligible, which I would recommend for all of you. Then it scans through all 700 billion in federal grants and contracts to show you which grants and contracts are a best fit for you and which federal agencies will fund stuff like yours based on what they funded in the past. So we bring a lot of non-obvious results. People come to us and they have a health innovation or an education innovation, and suddenly we're finding them NASA funding, you know? So we help them find the opportunities, and then we actually help them apply. We have generative AI and application tools, and then we have low-cost human support where our team will work with you hands-on weekly for admin and strategy. They'll do all the grant writing for you. They will create an opportunity pipeline for you. And so it really is playing the numbers game, identifying all the opportunities, and diversifying yourself and staying compliant and successful so that you actually have a chance to win this funding, as opposed to just floundering and wasting your time, energy, and money.
Fantastic, fantastic. So that's a really good deal. So so the business model for that is, so they start off like with a free version, then a tiered level, and another tiered level. So
Yeah.
What are the kind of different options for that?
So we have iterated on our business model, but we've figured out what has been the best thing for our founders, right? So there's a free version where you check your eligibility and you can use keywords to search. And then there is search only tiers where you use our AI to search, which will show you more, better results, non-obvious connections, etc. And then we have AI application only, and also human support application. So it just depends on how you want to apply to things. If you want to just search and you want to just use the AI to search, it's $180, I believe, a year. And anyone who actually wants to work with us, I'll give you a discount. Just let me know. So if you just want to search, it's only a couple $100. If you want to just use the AI, it's, I think, $600 a year. And then if you want the hand-holding human support where we're meeting with you all the time, we're doing all the grant writing, you still have the AI access. And I find that to be the most valuable, especially for first-time applicants. It's like a couple $1,000. So again, we're the most low cost in the market. You do not have to be in California. This is for anyone across the US or anyone who's majority owned and operated in the US who wants to go after these kinds of grants and contracts.
Fantastic. So let's get back to Sandra's question about the market research tool.
Yeah. So I actually would be happy to do like a quick little demo for you guys.
Okay, that would be good.
But basically what happened is, while we're working with thousands of people going after grants, we realized that they need better commercialization strategies, better partners and letters of support, better understanding of their competitors. And so we built out a market research tool for them. Let me place that here.
So yeah, you can share a tab or you can share a screen if you wanted to do a little quick demo.
Yes. Okay. Here we go.
I'll add it to the stage. Yeah, I'll add it.
Perfect. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yes, we can see it. I'll get this stuff out of the way here.
Perfect. So this is our market research tool. It's actually being used by the Air Force, the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, big corporates, startups, etc. So you pretty much like just search by something you're interested in. Let's say identifying predisposition to cancer using artificial intelligence. Or you would put in your own startup, even if it's not like particularly technical. And then the AI will basically scan through millions of innovation data points across industry, government, and academia to show you all the trends in your space. So this will show you, and it just takes a couple seconds to load, all the private funded startups who might be your competition, all the people who are getting government grants, the earlier stage companies, the investors and the strategic corporates that you should be reaching out to, technologies you can license in, patents, grants and contracts, professors, publications. So it's a whole analysis of your space. And you get contact information, you can work with these people, you can track your landscape, and you can even just basically in a couple minutes generate a whole market research report just for your technology. And so it uses our logic, our AI, our mission-driven affordability to really give you personalized insights into these non-obvious data points, you know. And so I'm going to just stop sharing my screen now. That was just a quick demo.
That's pretty quick, and yeah. So we partner with you also. We could offer that to our startup founders, and so. But I guess people might be curious. You know, what does that product cost as well?
Yeah, right now, I've launched it commercially, and so we're still sort of in that early adopter phase, which is why I have it priced so affordably. So for your guys' community, I'll offer it at $500 for unlimited searches and things like that. So anyone who would want it, it would be $500.
Yes, so that's almost unbelievable. How many what type of records you kind of showed? Would you reiterate what type of records you all have in there?
Yeah, our data sets include like what our data sets are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So private funded companies and startups, government funded startups, early stage startups without funding, investors, strategic corporates, patents, government funding opportunities, licensable technologies, professors and subject matter experts. And then hopefully we'll do like clinical trials and things like that soon. And then market research report.
But like I was also interested in the size, the amount of records that you have in some of those things. So give us some examples.
I mean, it's millions and millions. Anywhere you would think to search, we have aggregated, cleaned up, and brought in. Some of the information is proprietary, and some of it is given to us by the government. But most of this is like public data. It's just if you're looking at a resource that has 50 million data points, you wouldn't even know where to start searching or cleaning that up. And we have done that. So we have genuinely millions on millions of data points in there. And we just absorbed this new data set that actually I think is like tens of millions more. So I can't give you a number, but it's a lot.
Yeah, I just want to kind of get that point. But this is kind of another way when you look at doing innovation. So you know with the similar technology that you use in your SBIR thing, we say how does that potentially that technology can be modified to aggregate all that data and generate these reports or whatever.
Yeah, no, but it's exactly that, right? You would think that we were just applying our AI to searching for grants and contracts. But if you just tweak your R&D a little bit, you can get really beneficial stuff in the end for the same amount of work, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, so you got a couple of people sitting there, and they want access, you know. So that sounds really great. So,
and it's something, Lloyd, that I really recommend to founders. Whenever I'm mentoring or I'm doing pitch deck reviews, I feel like people really skimp out on competition. And it's hard to Google competition, I guess, but this is one of the reasons I feel like, you know, in market research is important.
Yeah, so I guess Tony wants your LinkedIn thing, and I didn't think to put that in earlier, but yeah, so yeah, that's pretty neat. But I think the main thing is that, and so my mind tells me there may be some other opportunities like what you all did, so for other data sets that are out there. And so you have to, just kind of think outside the box. And so like when I work for the government, anytime I ran into a company or whatever, and I tell people this about the SBR thing, when I took over as branch chief, I had my branch had 300 active SBIRs, so it was like a madness, kind of like a headache thing. But the bottom line is, it's like one of the things that, working for the government, we always had to think about commercialization.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I saw any technology, and even when I see technology now, I say, well, what are some alternative ways that technology can be used? Because a lot of us as founders, we're out there reinventing the wheels when the patterns already exist of, of things that will work and make money. So always look for the patterns.
And if you're talking lean startup, you're talking all of these methodologies for people. This is exactly why we're trying to save you time, energy, and headache and pain. See what's out in the market. Figure out, like, just be educated as you create your company.
And some of the founders out there can afford to pay for your software, but the ones that are not, we're offering the research tool stuff to our founders. So
absolutely,
don't feel bad because the bottom line is, there are a lot of resources out there, and our job is to connect you with the resources and support you on your journey. Any questions before we wrap up here, audience? This is your chance to kind of get your last minute questions answered.
And I hope this has been useful for everyone. Feel free to comment that it wasn't,
But I think I saw patterns. Like we learn a lot. Your background story was pretty neat. And the reason, just so the audience knows, the reason why we asked those questions, Michaela, I just wanted you all to know he's actually in Kenya, I believe. So he's actually staying up late after midnight. And
thank you. All right. Woo woo.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what the deal is there. So there's some definitely dedicated founders out there, but yeah. So just the takeaways I got is, like, that was pretty neat, knowing that there's a fraternity out there that when you're in college you have to, so there's so many entrepreneur programs from elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, and so you never know what's out there. And so it's kind of good to hear that from your story and your company. The two founders, they didn't even know what they were going to build, and they got in a venture studio and sort of just followed the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty neat too. So it's just really good takeaways, and that if the founders follow the methodology, things will work out for them. So, are there any takeaways that you want to leave the founders with?
To have faith in yourself, to invest in community. People like Lloyd, they really care, right? And you should be connecting with all these other founders. I think this becomes a safe space to really learn and grow, and have that wind beneath your wings. And then, there's a lot of creative ways of going after stuff. So consider alternative sources of financing, consider these different points of education, work closely with Lloyd. You guys got this, but just have faith, trust, community, resources, and feel free to reach out anytime if I can be of support.
Fantastic. So we're excited for you to be able to share the information about your company and its journey and your journey. So we really enjoyed it. And so we'll be back next week. So we look forward to that. And also we're kicking off a 90-day Black Founders program. So reach out if you're interested in getting on that. It's a great opportunity to kind of learn this customer discovery stuff and learning what people really want before you actually build it. And I was on a call this week with a startup, and And so they wanted to, they're building something. They got an idea what they wanted to build. And so they reached out to me on LinkedIn. So they marketed to me on LinkedIn. And so, and what the way they hooked me was that they were looking for beta testers. Well, if it was a chance to earn, get some new software or whatever. And so the deal was, so when I got on the call with them yesterday, so that they were just wanted to understand why I wanted to use what they were potentially building. They didn't even know, they had an idea what they wanted to build, but they just kept asking me questions, what work or what problem I'm trying to solve. And so, and this was the most interesting part. The beta test program wasn't going to start till 2 to 3 months from now. So they're literally, before they even build the beta test thing, they're getting the information from the people that might. So guess what I told them? I said, well, startup founders, they don't have a lot of money when they're getting started, but their idea for what they truly were going to build was build these AI interns for companies. So I said, well, startup founders, they don't have money. So it would be nice if they had interns that can help them do all the things, as they're building along. And it was just an interesting conversation. So so just these conversations help you learn what to build. And so that's what I want. That's the point of me telling you the story is, so when you're on your journey, just realize these different methodologies to kind of move forward and get the information before you go out there spending all.
And what really stuck out to me from that is exactly what I would do with the lean startup. I wouldn't have a single dang product, okay, but I would already have like a sales list, pre-sale, if you're solving the right issue, the early adopters will come, the interest will be there, and you can build with faith.
Gotcha. Yeah, fantastic. So bye-bye, everyone. We'll see you all next week. And Caroline, if you just hold on just a minute.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Bye-bye, everyone.